All right, so it's another beautiful Wednesday evening, and you're tuned into Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, where we are locking the hour for the voices of the millennials. Coming to you with me, your regular host, Anna Maria Emisa. Tonight is going to be another session of another informative session where we are going to discuss issues that are relevant to millennials like us. And I hope that your day has been good, everything has been going on well, and you are all poised and ready to join our discussion tonight. Tonight, we want to talk about relevant youth programs in our communities. We want to um, discuss how these programs affect or impact the youth, young individuals, millennials, you know how they impact the youth, how we want it to be done more often to be able to impact our youth in a positive way that will put them on the right path and make sure that they grow into positive individuals that have good positive ambitions and are able to uh, go right into the path where they will grow to be very productive and impact the communities that they find themselves in. So, tonight is going to be about relevant youth programs in our communities. And of course, joining my conversation tonight is Michelle Hobler. She will be my guests in the studio tonight where we'll discuss this and more. So I assure you it's going to be another informative session, and I can't wait for us to delve straight into the conversation tonight. Of course, we are going to take a look at the impact on the youth, the community perspective, and we'll look at the challenges and opportunities that uh, oppose some of these youth programs. We are also going to see how engaging the youth in our communities, the positive impact that it brings, and more. Michelle, welcome to the Voices of the Millennials tonight.
Hello, everybody. Hope you're well. Hope you're well, Miss Emisa, as well.
Yes, we are. We are doing good, and we are excited to be delving into the topic tonight: the relevance of youth programs in our communities. I don't know. Let's just get straight into it, like we always do. So, when it comes to youth programs, I can't recall whether I've been a part of many, but I'm sure I have been part of one or two. But when we talk about youth programs, what exactly? What's the understanding behind youth programs? What do we envision when we talk about that?
Definitely a good question. I think that in a good topic, especially in the time and age that we find ourselves, where the youth, there's a good understanding that the youth is the future, and the youth is not only the future, but the youth is also now. And so building up the youth is a really important and integral part of our society. And hearing the voices and acknowledging and appreciating the voices of young people and implementing the ideas of young people in our time is a very essential part of community growth and community initiatives. When I think of youth involvement and youth programs, I think of a wide range of things. I think that ranging from on the provincial level, on the federal level, on the provincial level, and even at local levels. Just this, I think this earlier today, actually, I didn't say this afternoon, but I think it's much earlier in the day. I was looking at some organizations that are not only spearheaded by young people, but are an active part of these organizations is the mobilization of young people for young people. And so I think that community youth engagement and youth community, there's a lot of youth engagement and youth community leadership within our societies, looking at education, looking at healthcare, looking at social work. That's a really big one. And in terms of impact and giving back, and looking at finances. For example, there's lot of young people speaking about debt, speaking about debt management, speaking about um, the importance of education about finances, because it's not something that we get in the classroom. And a whole lot. So I think this it's definitely not even a limited topic. I think we can speak about this week and even next week. In the sense that there is active, there's a
It
lot
will
to be
actually be
talking
fun to
about.
have like a community coordinator or something like that to join our conversation maybe next week or something. I
Yes,
mean,
I
we'll see
think
what we
that
can
would be
do.
a great, yeah, I think that would definitely be a great idea. Because there is a lot going on. There is a lot of youth are actively trying to break barriers and things like that within our community. Not just waiting for the platforms to do this, but are actually creating those platforms themselves. And if I should say so. So I think there is a really huge I don't say markets, but there's a huge community of young people um, working for young people with young people to boost the community at this point.
So when we talk about community programs, we are talking about programs like mentorship initiatives, after
Yeah,
school programs,
yeah.
career coaching stuff. Now, do we have a lot of these things happening in our various communities, like where we find ourselves?
I would say there is. I think that there is an abundance of, I won't say abundance, but there's sufficient youth programs if you're interested. I know that there's youth programs on community levels. For example, even the Ghanaian Canadian community, for example, has a lot of youth programs that are meant to empower young people, but also keep young people um, engaged. So young people are both giving and also receiving. And that's the beauty about it. I think there's a lot of um community and what do I even call them, like area youth programs as well. I was reading on one earlier today. Let me just see if I can like pull that up. But it was a really, I thought, oh wow, this is really interesting. It's the ACSA community service. And myself, I moved into Scarborough recently, and I was just looking at the kind of work that they're doing in the area that I find myself in. And it's so amazing to see, like, there's a lot of support to help people even integrate, youth programs to help people integrate into the community. Scarborough, for example, they're helping people to also they're helping people to find employment, for example. Helping youth to look at what they bring to the table, how to offer those to employers to get employed. They also help with education. So people who are trying to integrate into schools. I don't know if you know much about the Toronto system, but the school system, you are encouraged to basically go into school in your area. Like, unlike back home where people are driving an hour and so to go to school, here the area that you are living in, there's good education for you to be able to be educated within your own community. And so that in itself builds some sort of community for the youth as well. There's a lot of they have healthcare initiatives as well. Um and so I believe that there's some at that level, at this local level, for example. There is there's good enough youth programs if you want. And then at the provincial level as well, there's a lot of youth councils, which and that allow young people to voice out what they voice out their opinions on very recent topics, on very relevant topics as well. And there are also young people working at those provincial levels. For example, one of my colleagues in Africa is doing a really good job supplying, supporting people in the community, providing supplies, working with the government to be able to provide some of these things for people who are in need. And so I think that there's a lot of I think, to be honest, if we're really being honest, if you look, and you are very interested in joining a certain youth program, you definitely would have that opportunity to. And also, if you feel like you're not finding one that you're hoping to affiliate yourself with as well, I don't think there's any limitation with creating one yourself and getting other people on board who will share in your vision if you're really and truly passionate about it. Miss Sims, I don't know if you have any if you've
Yeah, I
encountered any
don't know
such
if
programs.
I don't know if from the other parts of the world, I mean, let's move a little bit away from Canada. I mean,
Yeah.
these programs are very, very good for the youth. If every country and every community should have something like this, it's something that it's actually going to be a safe space
Uh-huh.
for young individuals to grow and explore and express themselves and all of that. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, not there's not much of these programs from the parts of the world where we come from, and it's something that maybe in the future, if we could advocate for such programs to expand to those areas, it would be a good thing for them as well. But when we talk
Yeah.
about the youth programs and we want to rate success, like we want to say that, okay, this is actually a very successful youth program, what are the things that we will be looking out for? Like, for example, I'm thinking that a successful youth program should be one that will allow a young person or an individual to be able to build confidence, for example, such that they are not intimidated by life issues and they are able to especially express themselves very well in
Yeah.
community, in society, in whatever they do. We tend to find young individuals that are timid, that have low self-esteem, inferiority complex, because they do not have access to some of these programs that allows them to gain or build that confidence that they are. But when we talk about successfully putting together a youthful program, what are some of the things that we need to look out for to rate that?
I think that first thing, like you identified, is figuring out what the need is for these young people. What what are you trying and hoping to fix? What problem are you hoping to fix? Is that's where I'm trying to what I'm trying to get at. Once you find what problem you are trying to fix, then you can start drawing the parameters for what your initiative will look like, and then what your success metrics will look like. For example, in the case the example that you gave about young people being timid, it's why it's finding out, okay, this is the problem, for example. And so how why what are the reasons surrounding some of this, the reason for this timidity. You would find that sometimes it has like family backgrounds, and depending on how the person was raised, for example, you would find that it could be maybe they were raised in somewhat courageous environments, but an experience that they had in school, or maybe somebody spoke to them. You often hear, or a teacher told me this, or a professor told me this, and so at that point you realize that your initiative will gear towards healing, for example, and speaking to those kind of insecurities, or those kind of and helping those people and learn some of the things that have been taught to them. And then you also find that now that you have kind of dissected what the source of these problems are, and you've kind of you start drawing initiatives to solve these. And so if you're trying to look at something like healing, for example, you're looking at therapy, you're looking at you're involving psychologists, you're involving both social and clinical psychologists. You're also involving you're looking at integrating some of these people in certain environments, putting them through certain what do they even call them? Putting them through in certain scenarios to see how they'll react to these. And so I think that it really, really and truly depends. And that's why it's really important to um when you're trying to affiliate yourself with a certain youth program, to really understand the motivations behind this youth program, to see what the initiatives in the youth within the youth program look like, to see what the aim of the youth program looks like, because you need to make sure that it's resonating with you personally, and at the end of the day you are hoping to see a certain impact. You yourself have this, like, can self-evaluate what impacts that you're trying to leave or hoping to leave through this youth initiative. I think that um now more than ever, people are quick to, for example, start something, right? Start a youth program or start something within the community. But like we said in prior conversations, have you done your research? Are there people that you can collaborate with to ensure that you're maximizing impact? Is it just about, okay, I need to put my name out there to start to show that I'm starting something? No, you want to make sure that if there isn't, if maybe somebody's doing something similar to what you were doing, and you think you can do it differently to achieve better results, that's great. But if you realize that you're very much in sync with other people, then you might want to affiliate yourself with these youth programs instead of dissociating and, you know, kind of trying to do your own thing at the end of the day. But I definitely think that um there is there is room there is room for there's an importance to evaluate the youth programs and the impacts that we're hoping to leave in these various youth programs. But in terms of you evaluating, I would say that um it's really on a very personal level, depending on what your the aim of your youth program seeks to build. Because there's some that you
Yeah.
can use qualitative, there's some that only quantity. You can't use quantity. For example, you want to make sure that at the end of the day, it's not just, oh, we sponsored 50 people and we supported 50 people. Can those people go into, for example, education, adult education programs? I find when people just put through the numbers, I'm like, no, it's not just about the numbers. Oh, we took 50 older people and we put them through school. It's, at the end of the day, are these people able to speak for themselves? Are these people able to you've sent them out after getting these, putting them through an education, but can they go into the job market speaking for themselves? Have you been able to truly achieve that which you supposedly put them through school for? Are they able to are they empowered enough to get into the community to start something for themselves if no employer is ready to take them? You know, those kind of things. So I think it's a very objective thing, depending on your, and a very skewed evaluation matrix, depending on what your aim is for your youth program. If you ask me, I don't
So
know. Do you have?
yeah, from what we are gathering, then, so if an individual, I mean, if you are out there and you are thinking of putting together a youth program, or you're thinking of joining forces to put together like a youth program, you should
Yes.
look out. These are some of the things that you should look out for. So your youth programs need to provide life skills. So like Michelle was saying, it's just not about the numbers. You need to have a program put together that ensures that you are providing life skills. There should also be networking opportunities, a sense of belonging as well. And then it should be very important to teach teamwork and resilience, because most of the problems that young adults face, definitely when they go into their workspaces, or going through life, it's always about being resilient and not giving up at the least challenge that you face. You should also have youth programs that talk about problem solving, or help out with problem solving skills, so that again you do not give up at the least challenge that you face, but rather, you know, get that thinking cap right and make sure that you are able to navigate through problems by solving them. And these are definitely valuable for both personal and professional growth as well. And also, the value of respect needs to be taught in some of these youth programs, because um, respect is important, and at the same time, respect is earned, is not commanded. So, in everything, in all the endeavors, once you you have respect as one of your major values, it reflects in everything that you do and makes sure that you exude that kind of respect in whatever you do, and at the end you gain or you earn that respect as an individual as well. So I mean, these are some tips for anybody that wants to put together youth programs, because the youth is the future, we are the future, and definitely putting together youth programs is definitely something that is very key for community development, especially as the youth is everything. We drive the change and everything. So once we have such programs in a community, what happens within the community? There's definitely a safe space that we are
Yeah.
creating. There's definitely less
Yeah.
negativity, less violence, less negative stuff that we always find youth falling into trouble for. There's definitely that peaceful environment or peaceful community that we end up creating once we have programs in place. Isn't that right?
Yeah. No, definitely. I think you
For
would realize
community.
that. Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, so basically, we are advocating for more of these youth programs to happen within community so that the youth can find a safe space, to thrive and build up. But what are some of the challenges that youth programs face? Could it be like organizers of youth programs, or organizations that are mostly spearhead youth programs? What are some of the challenges that in recent times they are faced with?
Yeah, I think that first of all, there's a bulk of knowledge around, and so I think that both good information and both and the opposite. And so some of the things that can often plague youth initiatives and youth and community initiatives is some of these like false knowledge and false information. I think that the scammers in the system are so many such that sometimes it's people start these youth initiatives, for example, with the hope of getting a certain amount of funding, and then it becomes difficult um, because, or they find themselves being scammed when it comes to um, gaining funds. And a lot of these initiatives thrive on funding, and so I think that's one of the things that will are often the problem. Second thing that is usually another problem is that um, you find that a lot of youth um, research is, even though there's a wealth of knowledge, sometimes there's so much passion that there's less um there's less research, there's less planning for these initiatives. And so it will start out so greatly with so much energy and passion and enthusiasm, but it won't be sustainable because that research, initial research and planning wasn't really done. Yes, maybe you would have done that research, but planning out what does your what do the short term goals look like? What are the long term goals look like on a daily? What is the hope, or what do you want the organization to, or the program to look like? And so building that entire portfolio, for lack of a word, I'll say that putting in that project management skill is something that we find is usually a hindrance because the youth initiatives are not sustainable. And so I think that's another thing that is usually an issue that we'll find. And next thing is mentorship. Sometimes people don't realize, but I would say that you need to understand the rules in order for you to bend them. If you don't understand the basics and the rules, it's very difficult for you to creatively bend them or be creative around the rules. And so having that, but sometimes that understanding those rules sometimes come with a certain level of mentorship with people who have had that experience. And so you get an experience from people who have been in the field, people who have been youth workers, people who are might not be youth workers, but for example, if we are doing a youth program in health, for example, you want to speak to nurses who have been in the field, who have all live in tape, who have put in the hours, who have been whose sweat has been felt in this profession, to be able to give you some knowledge based on experience that will help, steer you, that would help mentor you and the youth program that you are trying to instill. And so that lack of mentorship is something that I realized that is an issue. And then also perspective is something that I realize is a big issue. um Having have this conversation with one of my friends, was talking about how, when you think about education for young people, or education for immigrants, for example, people come into this country and it's all about work, 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 work. They need to, but you realize that at some point you have to educate yourself to be able to progress in your career, for example. But you realize that there are barriers in educating this education that you want to have for yourself. How many schools operate night school? How many libraries are open 24/7? And so if you work during the day, how do you get the education that you so require to be able to move forward? And so having a full perspective, a full rounded perspective on the youth program that you're trying, on the problems of the youth program that you're trying to solve, or the problem you're trying to solve by your youth program, is really important. Because at the end of the day, you might say, oh, people just maybe might not have, I guess, in this country, people don't really, you say, oh, maybe you don't have the money, but you realize that, okay, there's a credit system that can support. And then now it's like, okay, but even if I have the money, is there a time, is there time available for me to have that education, because I'm consistently working? Or even if I have the nights off, do I have that education around that time? And so you realize that there's a lot of limitation. And so having that full rounded perspective on the problem that you are trying to face is something that I think is usually a problem as well when it comes to these youth programs, because there's usually like a somewhat
Mm.
narrowed perspective on on the some of these problems that you're trying to solve. And so I think that is also an issue. Another thing that I would say um is an issue is that gaining these hard and soft skills, um yes, you might have the passion, but do you know how to mobilize people, for example? Do you know how to crowdfund, for example? Do you know how to push people to do you know how to push people to, for lack of a better word, be moved by this passion that you have, so that they can support? Because whether you like it or not, these youth programs are not a one-man business. These youth programs are spearheaded by forces. And so if you realize that you're not mobilizing those forces, then you need to go back and check, how is my communication? How is my, like you said, what does my, am I respecting the people? That am I sharing my passions appropriately? Am I speaking to to get people on board, to support? Do I have that organizational skills that when people sign up and are on board, I'm able to maximize their capacity, for example? There's a lot of things that go beyond just having that passion. And so making sure that you have those both hard and soft skills to be able to run these programs effectively is important. You don't want people to sign up and at the end of the day you don't have work for these volunteers, or you don't have a way of properly explaining your vision or explaining your ideas to them, so that they can be fully on board, that you can fully utilize them as well. Are you open to shape the direction of your youth initiative? Is there space for people to speak if they have any ideas about direction, or the way you should do certain things, for example? And so I think that some of these are just a few challenges that come with these youth programs. The first one being, do you really have you done your intense research? The second thing is that, are you what does your mentorship look like? Do you have people that you can go with for guidance from when you hit a standing block, to be able to change that into a stepping stone? Um, fair thing is that, are you, at the end of the day, are you really uh trying to find a way to phrase this, but at the end of the day, are you in a position where you have those hard and soft skills to be able to fully run the organization with beyond passion at the end of the day? And so I think these are just a few. I know, Anne Marie, you might want to share. You probably have a lot more to share, but these are just a few from me.
Reading around the subject, I realized that some of the challenges, definitely funding is the biggest one, but also having or training qualified staff popped up as one of the main reasons, posing as a challenge. Training qualified staff and ensuring program continuity.
Yeah,
Program continuity, I know, is definitely could be challenging because you need to make sure that your programs are always accommodating the kind of youth that you are attracting, because especially when you have a vibrant community where a lot of youth are coming in. Once they come in, you need to be able to accommodate all of their struggles and what they are looking forward to. So
yeah,
to be able to ensure that your programs are always relevant and resonating with the youth that you are bringing in, because once you are unable to touch, their soft spots in terms of
yeah,
getting their attention, they may come once and never come again. But they also say that reaching and retaining the youth that actually need, to benefit from these programs is also very challenging. I don't
yeah,
know how challenging it could be, because I have not run a program before, but I'm thinking that, yeah, retaining the youth, you know young individuals can be a handful. So
yeah,
I'm really kind of like relating to the fact that it may be difficult to retain them, especially, and make sure that they always come back to be able to benefit from these programs.
yeah,
Other points that I was reading around, we're talking about the local government, supporting these youth programs more by putting out or increasing, the amount of grants or funds that they have to support such youth programs, because it is quite involving, to put together programs for the youth, and therefore there are some calls for increasing in grants to make sure that they are able to accommodate all of that, and the increasing number of youths that they might be able to get to join the programs, and offering tax incentives to companies that sponsor programs is also another point that popped up. Tax incentives, the issue of taxes. So
yeah,
that's also from companies that sponsor programs, and prioritizing youth development in policy planning. So this is more
yeah,
political and getting into the government spaces, but these are very important calls from individuals, from businesses, from corporations that would be interested in putting together youth programs, relevant youth programs, that they are calling for, to be able to put them together and ensure that there's continuity, and there are always such programs available for our youth to benefit from.
yeah,
This is exciting. We are talking about relevant programs for the youth in our community. And on the Voices of the Millennials, when we talk about youth, we talk about young individuals, because we are all for pushing for productivity in our young individuals, making sure that they thrive wherever they find themselves. And it's just what we stand for. We like to motivate, we like to encourage, and we like to make sure that we see young individuals doing well in their various fields always. You're tuned into the Voices of the Millennials on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. um, there is also the issue of ensuring that these programs are more accessible. I don't know if Chantal, Michelle, if you have been like you recall being a part of any youth program since you were young. I mean, if you've ever been part of, but there are calls for better engagement, like especially now that we have technology, social media coming through. They're saying that there are calls for programs to be more accessible, integrating more of social media, integrating technology, and making it sticky for the youth to be a part of. Do you
Yeah.
have anything like that? Have you been able to
Join.
experience anything like that? Yeah, as an
Yes.
individual before.
Um, Honestly, I've been a good part of a lot of youth programs, if I'm being honest. But my most recent one would be with the Mosaic Institute. And it was a youth summit that was basically about dismantling. So the organization is basically for to dismantle prejudice. And so what they do is they have a lot of education on topics that are very sensitive in in the community, and so they speak about teaching you the language of uh, uh, equality, giving you the speaking the language about things to racial biases. For example, they do a lot of teaching about updating in terminologies and things like that, and so that program, for example, and it's fully youth that are youth plan it, and youth also participate in this program. And so it was a full youth summit, and something like that I would say is that it created that safe space for people to for young people to come in, voice out, have their questions answered, um share what some of the difficulties that they face as young people. For example, in like in finding some of these new terminologies, keeping up with some of these. They spoke about how to identify some of these biases, identifying some of these racial biases that you it was that like in our community you might not necessarily like you might be able to read online, but you find different things. They put that together into one class, and so that was very helpful for people to be able to understand and from credible sources instead of just reading from any source online and feeling a bit overwhelmed and confused and things like that. And so that's one youth program that I would say has was a really great impact. Just seeing um even the moderators, for example, also sharing some of the difficulties that they face in workplaces, for example, having experienced a certain sort of racial bias that some of them they didn't even like realize. Microaggressions, for example, something that they didn't even know how to identify in the first place till they had experiences in some of these like summits and workshops. And Mosaic, for example, used to host a whole lot of those as well. I've been to youth summits that have been held by like financial organizations, empowering young people when it comes to understanding the basics of finances. Like, do you end up paying? Do you get paid? When you get paid, do you pay yourself? For example, what is understanding the difference between wealth and understanding the difference between wealth and income? Understanding that is important for you to continuously um not just save a portion of your income or whatever it is, but also invest. Looking at some of these, breaking down for you to realize that no, at the end of the day, I'm working, but I'm not earning anything. Especially in this country where credit is a huge thing, and so financial. I've been to a number of financial youth summits as well, just empowering young people. I work with a colleague called Jeffrey. Super great guy. He does a lot of coaching for youth, goes into the classrooms, speaks about finances to them, helps them to understand. And one thing that shared with me the last week was that it's great to see that young people are really learning and extending themselves in the finances, trying to understand even some of the topics that he thought, oh, even he himself at this age didn't even know. When he goes to these classrooms, he's being questioned on some of these things. And so we realize that young people, and that's what I was saying, that really looking at what the program, that the aim of the program that you're trying to solve in your program, and understanding the relevance. Because much like Jeffrey, I'm sure there are a number of people who realize that no, they need to upgrade their programs in a certain direction, because some of the things that you would have probably heard, like youth not being involved, youth not getting the platform to speak in things, to some extent you realize that there have been a lot of progress with it. And so if you don't realize the progress that has been made, and to start from somewhat of the progress that has been made, you realize that your program wouldn't be relevant as much. I've joined youth programs as well, beyond just some of these community ones and finance ones. I've also joined educational youth programs that seek to provide education for, not just at for lack of a better way, not just formal education, but education beyond the classroom. And so some of these soft skills, for example, soft skills that you would need in the workplace, soft skills, understanding ethics, issues like that, and things around that. And so I think that I myself have been blessed through some of these youth programs and the mentorships. Rachel, really, God bless you. A really big mentor. She was the VP of Mosaic when Mosaic was running. Super great woman, always ready to speak to me, to empower me, to teach me something about like the industry. Herself being someone who's as the VP, she did a lot of organizing and things like that. Net Pointing me to the right direction, giving me networks to people to contact when I started. I told her about the event business that I started. And so I think that there's a lot of youth programs. There's a lot of people who are willing to help empower you to run these youth programs. And also there are a lot of programs that you can also receive from as a young person. You want to make sure that if you're giving, you are not only just giving, but you're also receiving as well. If you're receiving, you're not only just receiving, but you're also giving as well, because you have something to give to somebody who isn't gotten to the level that you've gotten to. Even just the awareness that you should probably join a youth program is something that people need to know. But you might realize, you might think that, oh, I don't have much to offer. But even just letting people know that, oh, these programs are available, is something that I think is really important. And I think perhaps maybe next week we can, hopefully, Kemi can share some of these youth programs in more detail about the youth program on the ground, if that's okay with her, so that people have that information and awareness, and can actually actively join some of these youth programs that are running, whether
Yeah.
at community levels or in whatever field that they're looking at.
It's very important because at the same time, uh, these programs need to be accessible for individuals. And so, if we can have information on where some of these programs are, how they can be assessed, and all of that, then we are
Yeah,
making progress. It's also important for families to play a crucial role. If we have programs
yeah,
where families are also involved,
yeah,
it makes the program relevant and important and
yeah,
motivating for young people to participate. I mean, imagine having a program where you can go with your parents.
yeah,
It helps with the bond, and it helps to create that safe space for the youth
yeah,
as well. Many of the problems that we hear, sometimes you realize that the youth actually have rebellious youth actually have problems with their parents, with their families.
yeah,
Probably they are not being
yeah,
heard enough, or they are not being spoken to enough. So if we can have programs where families are involved, it will be a very good one. Also, creating partnerships between local businesses, schools, community centers is also one way that can make these programs relevant.
yeah,
Having companies, offer internships, for example, internship opportunities for the youth. They are all
yeah,
types of youth programs that we can have companies do to support community in that regard. So there's a lot that benefit from, and there's a lot that we can do as a community to ensure that our youth, get that safe space that they are looking for. So I'd also like to remind you that the Voices of the Millennials is equally a youth program.
Yeah.
We held this the last Voices of the Millennials Summit that was held in July. We did give out scholarships to young individuals. We brought resource persons that had very insightful talks, speeches that really resonated with the youth, and it really gave them that motivation, to continue to thrive in their spaces. And it was a very beautiful summit, which we will continue having. We will continue holding and hosting right here. From Love Bay Afrobeat Music Radio, the Voices of the Millennials is that platform that we give for the youth to be able to feel empowered and motivated. So, if you are listening to us right now and you are a youth and you are looking for, that safe space, you're looking for that opportunity, that platform to express yourself, to, be able to ask questions and learn more. Even if you want us to have, if you have topics, particular topics of discussion that you want to learn more about, you can let us know, and we will definitely look for resource persons to be able to have that discussion that will empower you as an individual. Bishop, what does the future of youth programs look like in our communities? What do you think? How would you like to see youth programs coming out in, say, the next 5 years?
That's a really good question. I think that personally for me, I want to see a lot of collaboration in with the initiatives that are being are had, whether on religious levels, whether on financial levels, whether whatever be the case. I just want to see a lot more collaboration because I feel like there's a lot of power in some of these collaborations. I also want to see lengthier youth programs in the sense that not just having an event per day, but um, more like youth programs that help take a person for, like, example, a year and train and nurture them for a year. Those are the kind of things I also want to see coming forward. Not just people coming to a program and then they're like, wow, I felt really, challenged. And then they go and sleep and the next day it's like, by just seeing programs that kind of coach people for a lengthier period, see those people thrive, see the difference in the lives of those people, see the impact in the lives of those people. Those are the kind of youth programs that I want to see more of. I also want to see more, um, I would like to say more, more implementation of government programs by youth. I want to see a lot more of, yes, now the voices are being heard. We have a lot of youth on councils, and it's something that you recognize that most councils even have a space. At least there should be one youth on these boards. But I also want to see youth as the face of the implementations of some of these ideas that are brought forth and things like that. It would be a really great thing to see when I think of the future of youth programs. Anne Marie, do you have anything else?
I think that I also would want to see well-funded youth centers,
Mm,
offering diverse programs from academics to arts, different programs that meet different needs and interests of individuals. Because when I see young individuals that are struggling in terms of identifying themselves, in terms of
yeah.
um, being confused about what they want to do or where they want to go, just because they have not been able to spend quality time with individuals or with with mentors that would help shape them, it kind of like really feels sad.
Yeah.
Every youth should get that opportunity from the very beginning,
Yeah.
and not want to say in the future that, oh, I wish I had this opportunity, I missed out on this opportunity, and that is why I turned out this way. I
Yeah.
feel like every youth needs to benefit from a good coaching, a good mentorship right from the beginning, to be able to get shaped whilst they grow. So, I mean, I'd want to see well-funded youth centers. I would want to be a part of something like that, to be able to empower and motivate the youth and be able to meet their various needs and interests. And also, obviously, just like there are a lot of calls for tax incentives on companies that are partnering or doing or sponsoring youth programs. I feel like in the future there should be more or increased government participation and investment in these youth programs, so that
Yeah.
that more funding can be pushed into the youth, into youth programs, with emphasis more on mentorship, because mentorship is everything actually. If you get the right mentorship, uh, it really really helps. It really helps. So
Yeah.
there should be more emphasis on mentorship and um, job training to prepare the youth for the real world. Various job trainings. So there should be a lot of programs, concentrating on job trainings for the youth, for them to be able to, have an idea of the kind of field of work that they would want to get into at a very early age in their life, so that it helps shapes them, and all of that. And of course, technology is our best friend, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, essentially, there should be a lot of technology involved in these youth programs, to be able to help in retaining the youth, because social media uh, it looks like it's one of the major things that can be used in
Yeah.
getting the attention of the youth of today. Social media is
Yeah.
everything. So leveraging on the positive side, of course, of social media, to
Yeah.
be able to meet the youth where they are active the most. I mean, social media
Yeah.
is where they are active the most, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
using social media will be like the most powerful way of retaining them and getting them to get the most out of everything that they need to benefit from. So I believe there's been a great conversation tonight about relevance of youth programs. I'm
Yeah.
thinking that definitely next week it will be really really nice to have a youth program coordinator, a company that is you know really into youth programs,
Yeah.
to be able to join us, and we can ask some of the questions, and they can give us like real life on the job experiences and answers, for us to really understand what goes into youth programs and
Yeah.
maintaining it, and how the whole thing comes up. I'm not promising you, but we would definitely make sure that we get somebody to speak to us on these programs, because this is definitely a very interesting conversation that we would want to know more about, to be able to at least share the word, and let everybody know, especially the youth, where some of these programs can be assessed, to be able to make the most out of it. I think I'd call it a night. Michelle, what do you think? Do you have any last words for our
Definitely.
listeners?
Um, just try and find a youth program. If you haven't been involved in one yet, you definitely will. Would see the difference in yourself and in your community, and the impact that you leave in your community. And if you're finding a challenge to find one, definitely reach out. We'll definitely help you to find one that can help you and help everyone else around you, because that's what the youth programs do.
All right. So tell us, just get in touch. You can also tell us about any youth programs program that you are a part of. Tell us how it is going for you that you have had so far. Just let us know. Take advantage of these programs out there because they offer the opportunity to learn, grow, and find people who genuinely care, about your success. Get involved in volunteering. If you are a corporate business, if you are a philanthropist, if you are an organization that has money and would want to donate to these causes, please definitely reach out to us on Love Bay Radio. Do let us know what you can offer. And if you can just spread the word about these local programs, please let us know. Okay, give us the information because together we make a significant difference with such good and important information like this for our youth. It's been a wonderful night. My name is Anna Maria Emisa, your regular host. Thank you so much, Michelle, for always showing up and being with us right here on the Voices of the Millennials. We are excited to have you every night, listeners, and we hope that you will continue to help our cause by tuning in and listening in and joining us and pushing us and supporting us with everything that we do. My name is Anna Maria Emisa. It's the Voices of the Millennials. Good night and see you next week.